Hi, we're here sitting with Mike Salvatori. Mike has come to Austria to teach a workshop, a composer in residence workshop in music scoring for video games in interactive media. We're very, very happy to have Mike here with us. And Mike, how would you say in a few words that scoring for a video game differs fundamentally from scoring for media such as movies or TV, for linear media?
Well, I think with video games, the thing that you get mostly is that you have so many different options that can happen. So the game never plays the same way twice, and the music never plays the same way twice. So you have to build your music in a more modular fashion so that it can move in a direction depending on what the player does. Perhaps it becomes more tense, perhaps it becomes more active, and so you build your pieces in a more modular way.
You have done very, very cool and well-known games such as Halo, and now you're working on Destiny, which is bound to be another hit. The aesthetics of going for orchestral, big, epic music, is this something that it's close to your heart? You personally love that, and you brought that sound into the mix, working with the game designers, or was it a coincidence that that's what they were looking for, and it was just a great fit for that reason?
Well, I think it's a great fit because I think that's what the game calls for. In my mind, there is no greater instrument in the world than a symphony orchestra. I grew up listening to orchestral music. I love going to the symphony. I'm always learning. And when we first started talking about the music for Destiny, we really made some decisions to keep it as orchestral as possible. There are still some areas where we use synths and in drums and certain things like that, but my favorite parts are the orchestral parts, and I think that it gives the game its own identity and its own sort of sense of purpose.
If you were to give quick 5 short pieces of advice to people who are aiming to become composers in interactive media, particularly for video games. Of course, I mean, the basic rules don't change, things are pretty much as they have always been. But if there are any particulars to this industry, what would be your advice to folks starting their careers now in video game scoring?
Well, the first thing is that it's still, no matter what you do, no matter what type of game or scene that you're trying to score with your music, the music still has to stand on its own. It still has to be listenable and interesting and tell a story. So even what I just said about the going modular with the music, that's still that takes second place to the fact that you still want a piece of music that is evocative, that tells a story, like I said, and so you want to build something that can go many different directions. One advice I can give is to keep what seems to work in video games is to keep your melodies a little bit shorter. It gives you more options, whereas in a linear piece, you might decide to go off on a long, winding melody. In video games, that becomes less and less useful the longer it gets. So that's one. So there are certain constraints, but as a composer, so those constraints can send you in a direction that you may never have thought of before. And another thing that happens in video games is sometimes things change quickly, and you have to shift to a different piece of music. So sometimes it can be helpful to write things in odd meters or in short chunks and things like that. So those would be 2 things as a composer that would differ and be more usable in a video game.
Do you subscribe or do you believe that the tendency of having audience, having the fan base, the community contribute to the making of games or to the composition of the soundtrack of a game? There's a lot of synergy in that regard going on right now. It seems that people can contribute and create alternative versions and mixes and so on. Do you see this grand interactive world becoming a reality, that it will really be more of a two-way street between the audience and the content creators? Or do you think that it will essentially stay the way it's always been, except that there will be perhaps a bit more interactivity from the audience into the piece?
That's a really good question. I think even already there is a lot more back and forth between the fans and us. The fans are very involved, very vocal about the types of things we do. I love going online and hearing fan versions of stuff that we've done, and some of them are really, really good. So that part of it is very different than, say a symphonic composer presents his idea to the audience responds to it, but there's really no feedback besides that. This is, there's very much feedback on this, and we enjoy that part of it. I love it when the fans get up and cheer during one of the concerts or something. That's a very, very good thing. I don't know if I answered your question exactly what you were intending, but that's what comes to mind.
Oh, that's great. I mean, you're acknowledging that that synergy is happening, and it remains to be seen how it's going to evolve. But it's a very healthy and exciting thing to have this type of synergy with the public. How do you feel teaching here at the Donau Universität in our Masters of Arts in Music for Film and Media program?
This has been a great experience for me. I have done seminars before, but they're usually short, maybe an hour or two, and to actually get to dig in with these students for 4 days in a small group, lots of one-on-one, lots of questions. I love that because I'm learning a whole lot from them too. So it's been a very good back and forth, I think, uplifting experience, and it's been good. I would look forward to doing it again.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure having you here. We are learning a lot from you, that's for sure. Thanks a lot again.
Thanks, Miguel. Appreciate it.